Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're getting spooked and then turning on the lights to see that there's nothing in our room except Teletubbies wallpaper. These are the 20 scariest levels in non-horror games. Let's go.
Before we continue, we publish content all week long, so be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified of our latest videos.
Lavender Town, Pokemon Red and Blue. Lavender Town is that one Pokemon location that feels less like a cheerful stop on your journey and more like a setup for a creepypasta marathon, which I guess it kinda is. After leaving Vermilion City, you stroll in expecting another upbeat tune, only to get smacked with the most unsettling music in the franchise. A theme that sounds like your Game Boy is whispering, "Leave now," in Morse code. The townsfolk don't help either, talking like eerie puppets programmed by ghosts. The infamous Lavender Town conspiracy claimed the track's high-pitched noise drove kids in Japan to madness back in the 90s. Honestly, it's the only Pokemon town where you half expect Pikachu to have a seizure. Dark Bramble Outer Wilds. The Groundhog Day-like time loop of Outer Wilds forces you to poke your nose into dangerous, mysterious places way sooner than you'd like, just to inch forward in your progress. It has plenty of spooky moments that aren't intentionally spooky, accidentally ejecting from your spaceship in the cold nothingness of space or falling into a black hole in the middle of a planet, but the horror doesn't really crank up until you hit Dark Bramble. This foggy, thorn-filled nightmare of a planet is the eeriest location in the game. You follow faint harmonica notes like a moth to a flame or glowing white lights. Some guide you safely while others drop you straight into the teeth of gigantic anglerfish. Easily the scariest moment in your whole playthrough. The first time you realize silence is your only survival tool is pants-changingly scary. Shadow Temple, The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. The Legend of Zelda series may be colourful and whimsical, but it's also hiding some nightmare fuel. Majora's Mask is basically a horror game wearing a green tunic. But out of all the unsettling moments in Ocarina of Time, Wall Masters always crawled at the top of the list. See what I did there? These massive disembodied hands lurk just off screen, waiting to swoop down and snatch you back to the start of the dungeon like some sadistic babysitter. Although they appear early on, their appearance in the Shadow Temple thrusts the entire level into a horrifying experience. Bloodstained walls, guillotines, invisible enemies, and a boss that's basically a nightmare blob with hands. It feels less like a dungeon and more like Hyrule's haunted torture chamber. The Von Everec Estate, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt.
Graves, unmarked, laid out in rows like garden beds.
For a game that isn't even in the horror genre, The Witcher 3 sneaks in enough scary moments to make Geralt consider a career change. A standout comes in the Hearts of Stone DLC when you must explore the unsettling Von Everec Estate. Before even stepping inside, you meet the Caretaker, one of the creepiest RPG monsters ever, whose most terrifying feature is that he's got no face. After that nightmare, the mansion greets you with a wraith, and sadly, that's just the opening act. Turns out the house itself is scarier than most contracts, and if I may point it out again, the brother had no face. No face, you guys.
Damn.
Max's Nightmare, Max Payne. Max Payne has spooky moments for sure, but it isn't a horror game by any stretch. Around the midway point of his revenge crusade, Max decides to dabble in the fictional drug V, which offers a high somewhere between bath salts and an existential mental breakdown. During his high, he's stumbling through vein-like platforms in the dark, reliving the screams of his murdered wife and child. Don't do drugs, kids. The platforming alone is horrifying, but the real gut punch is the audio, Max's family blaming him for their deaths. Yeesh.
No, please God, no.
Deepnest, Hollow Knight. Deepnest in Hollow Knight is pure nightmare fuel wrapped in spider silk. Unlike the game's other areas, it ditches the tranquil charm for pitch-black tunnels, sudden drops, and claustrophobic corridors that make you feel trapped. The atmosphere is relentlessly oppressive with constant skittering, twitching enemies that leap from the shadows and a soundtrack that sounds like someone else joined the scoring team and they weren't having a good day. The enemies themselves are grotesque, and any spider design is going to throw me through a loop. The Dunwich Building, Fallout 3. Fallout 3, and I guess the Fallout series in general, have lots of spooky moments, especially when ghouls are involved. But horror? Nah. But the Dunwich Building is where horror can potentially be explored. Its halls defy logic, doors creak open on their own, and the players suffer disturbing hallucinations of pre-war life. The ghouls here aren't the scariest part, finally, they're practically the welcoming committee. Bethesda basically put a mini horror game in their game. Nightmare sequence, Life is Strange.
Bueller?
Diane Arbus.
Be calm
There
and
you go,
don't
Victoria.
freak out.
Why Arbus?
Yet.
Because of her images of hopeless faces. You feel like totally haunted by the eyes of those sad mothers and children.
Welcome to our second nightmare sequence. Nothing like a nightmare to bring the horror out of an experience, like a perfectly decent nap. Life is Strange might start off as a teen drama about photography, friendships, and time travel, but somewhere along the way it quietly mutates into a horror story. The nightmare sequence introduces blood-smeared windows, flocks of dead birds, bizarre visuals, and dialogue that feels like it could be recited by a sleep paralysis demon. You won't be throwing your controller across the room in fear, but it's still deeply unsettling.
Max! You used to be so pure, so innocent. Now, you have to die.
The Night Folk, Red Dead Redemption 2.
What's the commotion?
You a loon or something? This night folk country.
Night folk. I can look after myself.
Okay.
Okay, for this one, I'm really stretching the definition of level, by ignoring it completely. But if encounters with the Night Folk didn't appear, people would revolt. These swamp-dwelling nightmares lurk in the bayou, a place already creepy enough without swamp fog, weird noises, and mosquitoes the size of your fists. Encounters vary, sometimes it's a crying woman in white, sometimes it's a dead horse blocking your path, but they all end the same, with silent, possibly cannibalistic figures sprinting at you out of the dark. Honestly, even Jason Voorhees would run the other way.
What is this? Swamp trash?
Milla's Nightmare, Psychonauts. Third nightmare sequence. Agent Milla Vidello in Psychonauts looks like the definition of fun aunt energy, but dig a little deeper, and I mean really dig, like secret doorway hidden behind the couch deep, and things get dark fast. Inside a tucked away room, you'll uncover her tragic backstory. She lost all the children in her care to a fire and psychically heard their cries. Hit the chest nearby and you'll unlock her nightmare stage, proof that the scariest monsters are often in your head. Moonside, Earthbound. In Earthbound, you stumble into Moonside after a secret pub event in Forsyth, and suddenly Ness and Jeff are tripping through a neon nightmare. Oh my god, our fourth nightmare. Well, technically an illusion, but it still counts. Imagine if Las Vegas and Salvador Dali had a kid, and then that kid dropped acid. That's Moonside. The whole thing is short, never mentioned again, and yet it's one of the most unsettling, brilliant little detours in the entire game. The Gate, Spec Ops: The Line.
All right, Lugo, who are we up against? An army? Give or take? No shit. How are we getting through this?
This might help.
Fine, set it up.
The Gate is the 8th chapter of Spec Ops: The Line, and honestly, I can almost just say that and move on because you'll know exactly what happens. When you're ordered to hit a heavily defended area, things feel off. Then you step into the aftermath. Unlike most games where bodies vanish or feel like props, you're forced to march through a hellscape of soldiers choking on white phosphorus, writhing in agony, and begging for help you can't give. And then comes the final, devastating reveal. Those soldiers weren't attacking, they were protecting civilians. You unknowingly incinerated women and children. Dark, dark stuff.
That hotel back at the storm wall? No, those can't be the civvies that got kidnapped. It's not possible.
Queen Vanessa's Manor, A Hat in Time. Queen Vanessa's Manor in A Hat in Time is a shockingly terrifying detour in an otherwise colourful, whimsical platformer. The bright, cheery tone vanishes the moment you enter the frozen manor, where eerie music and oppressive atmosphere set the stage for pure dread. Instead of bouncy exploration, the level shifts into a stealth-based horror chase, with Queen Vanessa relentlessly hunting you down. Her distorted shrieks and sudden appearances feel like something ripped straight from Amnesia or Resident Evil. The contrast between the game's usual charm and this nightmare-like sequence makes it unforgettable and proof that even cute games can get terrifying fast. Robbing the Cradle, Thief, Deadly Shadows. Thief Deadly Shadows isn't the first game to suddenly pull the surprise it's a horror now trick. So why does Robbing the Cradle get such a legendary status? Because 20 years later, it's still nightmare fuel. The level forces you to solve a murder mystery while dodging ghosts, unsettling noises, and puppets that make the game feel like Five Nights at Freddy's Medieval Edition. If this were in a pure horror game, it'd be a highlight thanks to the flawless sound and lighting alone. Ocean House Hotel, Vampire the Masquerade, Bloodlines. Despite the title, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines isn't really a horror game. Most of the time, you're the monster. That gets flipped upside down the moment you enter the Ocean House Hotel. This place feels less like a quest and more like a, oh god, don't say it, nightmare sequence. Doors slam on their own and objects fly across the room. Beneath all the jump scares is a grim backstory that makes the place more chilling than cheap tricks ever could. Joker's Nightmare, Batman Arkham Knight. You gotta be joking. I can't even say it. When Scarecrow injects Batman with his fear toxin, you suddenly control the Joker in first person in a sequence that's reminiscent of a scary dream. It's a nightmare sequence. Welcome to a world that's basically Batman's idea of therapy, full of dimly lit hallways and people conveniently forgetting the Clown Prince of Crime exists. It's designed to scare Joker, but let's be honest, it also makes the player jump like a kid who just found a bat in their closet. And those Batman statues popping up behind you, forget about it.
Where are you?
Out.
The Bunker, Uncharted, Drake's Fortune. Uncharted is supposed to be about guns, parkour, and banter. What the hell, Drake's Fortune? Enter the Bunker, an abandoned submarine base that looks like it hosted some pretty bad decisions. The eerie atmosphere sets you on edge, but the real fun begins when the horde of zombie-like monsters come charging at you faster than Drake can crack a wise remark. It's the first time the game truly shows what lurks in the shadows. Basically, it's a prequel to The Last of Us, but with treasure hunting and more one-liners. The Vortex Queen, Echo the Dolphin. Most of Echo the Dolphin is surprisingly serene. You're a dolphin gliding through the prettiest oceans the Genesis could muster. Life is chill, until it isn't. By the end of the game, you're face to face with a xenomorph-esque nightmare that looks like it swam straight out of Alien, the Ocean Edition. Sure, the design isn't award-winning for originality, but the timing is flawless. 1 minute you're doing flips and enjoying bubble rings, the next you're screaming, "What is going on?" .343 Guilty Spark, Halo Combat Evolved.
When you locate Captain Keys, radio in, and I'll come pick you up.
The mission 343 Guilty Spark hits a pivotal point in Halo Combat Evolved. After skirmishing with the Covenant, you're sent on a rescue mission for Captain Keys. Cue optimism and then instant terror. Let me introduce you guys to the Flood, a parasitic nightmare that doesn't care about diplomacy, treaties, or manners. It will happily gut you or the Covenant with equal enthusiasm. Honestly, the Flood kind of turns Halo into Doom with a space helmet, which is fun, but slightly derails the sci-fi combat build-up. Yet, as a moment, pure brilliance. No notes. Ravenholm Half-Life 2. We don't go to Ravenholm. That line alone is enough to make you sweat. In a game already full of dystopian dread, Ravenholm introduces a more traditional kind of dread. You wander straight into a zombie-infested nightmare playground, complete with headcrabs and all the grotesque creatures you never wanted to meet. The best part? This horror also teaches you how to be a physics wizard. The gravity gun becomes your Swiss Army knife of terror, letting you fling saw blades, barrels, and anything else you can get your hands on at undead monsters. Basically teaching you that the best way to survive horror is to get creative and violent. This makes the horror feel achievable, but horrifying nonetheless.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from MojoPlays and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified of our latest videos.